Cool. Welcome to Rails Review. Yeah, how much view stuff are we trying to build? We're not gonna have time to build full CRUD functionality, right? We're gonna have time to probably focus on a couple of features that gives us a lot of the surface area of what we do in Rails. I think that Dunder Mifflin and Travelator are such good practice labs because they kind of scope very similarly to what you could expect to see tomorrow. They're not really asking you to like build too much in the way of views. These labs, right? They want you to build um, enough to show the thing that the user story is asking for. So you'll probably be asked to, like, if you have an object and you're showing an object in a show page, you probably should know how to call attributes on that object and embed those into your page. If you have associations between objects, I don't think it would be unreasonable to expect that, kind of like in Dunder Mifflin, right, where you go to a dog and you could see a list of employees that belong to that dog, listing like associated objects from the perspective of one object. That's the kind of like view stuff that you might see. You'll probably also have to work with like at least one form. That seems like it's going to be kind of a given, like given that that's where it all kind of comes together, model view and controller in Rails. And in the context of like form work, I think that one view consideration would be, how am I going to display errors to a user if they do not correctly like fill stuff out in a form? So I don't know how well that answers your question in terms of like how much it views. I think that you're going to need to embed some Ruby. I think that you're probably going to need to handle some HTML elements in there, and you'll probably have to pass objects in. So yeah, layouts and partials are. I don't think that they're necessary. I think that it's a nice to have. It's better than not using layouts and partials. Um, Layouts and partials are really good for building your projects next week in particular, because they're going to help you to have things like a nav bar at the top of your application. Um, Partials are a really good way if you have creation and editing of a feature, that you could make one form, right, for an object with the same instance variable name, and you could break that form off into a separate file. But I'm mostly concerned with, like, if you need to make a form, can you make a form that works, right? Whether that form is broken off in a partial is a matter of like refactoring. It's a matter of making something right that already works. But I would be more concerned with, like, what can you do to make things work, right? I think that if all you do in Rails is basically like write raw HTML to solve all your problems, and you have a Rails controller that like just returns a whole lot of like, instead of like form tags or form fors, you just use like an HTML tag for that. I don't think that's optimal. I'd probably have feedback for you on that, but I'd still much rather see that than a form for that is two characters away from working right, right? I'd much rather have a form that works and is not perfectly refactored than have a form that doesn't work. So I think that like the first priority is like creating running code. And then the second priority is taking your running code and making it as Railsy as you possibly can. And then finally, like on top of that, if you have any other sort of like icebox features, or if you wanted to add comments, or if you wanted to go and try like some extra thing if you had more time, that's where like you can really style on things. I'm not expecting anybody to be styling on things on like a timed code challenge though. So I would just say like, build the code that you know how to build the best way that you know how to build it, because this is designed to be a feedback mechanism. I want to be able to look at as much working features as you're able to give me, and then I want to give you as much feedback as I can on the working features that you've given me. If a feature doesn't work, obviously, then like my main feedback is going to be like, hey, this thing doesn't work. Let's talk about how to get it working. But I don't really personally feel comfortable giving you refactoring advice if the code doesn't really work. So yeah, will the projects next week still be partner projects? I think that, oh yeah, and Ethan's question I think is going to be a little quicker. So for the code challenge itself, Form 4 with some redundant stuff between views would be good. I think it'd be fantastic. I think that a Form 4 is better than a form tag, and I think that's better than just using a form HTML element. I think that if you're using a Form 4 and there's some redundancy and some repetition because you didn't have partials, I'd say that you're actually like one step away from the top notch, as opposed to like, oh no, it's not perfect. So yeah, in terms of like bad to awesome, like bad would be form doesn't work. Good would be it's a form but it's just an HTML element. Better might be like it's a form tag, so I can see that like they're configuring some things. Best might be, hey, it's a form 4, like they're ready to turn this into a partial. And then amazing would be like, hey, it's a form 4 and they did turn it into a partial. But at first I'm always looking like, does the form work? If I submit the form, can I create an object? So I think that if you have a way to make something in Rails that has worked for you, I would attempt to do that first, get it working, and then move ahead to refactor, only if you have extra time. Yeah. Projects next week, will they still be partner projects? I think that they could be, and I think that it would be a good idea to attempt that, right? I think that whether it's a matter of like figuring out what Zoom spaces people need, I can schedule Zooms ahead of time, and I don't mind like getting really intensive with scheduling Zooms and stuff. Um, my intention was that we would be doing pair projects as a way to make sure that people are staying in contact, either over Slack, over Zoom, setting up calls and staying in communication that way. I think that it's a really good opportunity on that like resume building tip to be able to say like, hey, not only did I do this program, but like I'm ready to work for you remotely as a junior because I've practiced the team collaboration and communication skills that are required for remote work in my curriculum. It was a happy accident that we had to do it, but we did it, and now coming out of this, I can tell a prospective employer I know how to get a project done, and I don't have to necessarily be in the office to get it done and work with other people in real time. So yeah, that's something that's on my mind right now. I might open up a Google form for like feedback about that to just kind of take a temperature on the cohort, because I definitely don't want to throw people into a situation that feels like completely untenable. But to my thinking, I think it's actually going to be easier if people are paired up in terms of time management, making sure that they don't spin off into too many rabbit holes, and staying focused on a project. I think that if you're alone all week working on a project, it's very, very possible to pop your head up and then it's Wednesday and you've built like some amazing thing in one view, but there's still a whole lot of features that are incomplete because you just kind of lost track of time. So I'm definitely trying to guard against that as well. Um, cool. So, any other questions like for the chat? I'm gonna hop in and get some code popping in a second. Let's see here. I've got no screen shared, so that's gonna be a problem. Let me share my screen real quick. Let's see. I'm getting ready to share it. I had a bunch of other stuff that I was doing, so now I'm doing all the other stuff that I was doing. Great, cool. Let's do a screen share, and so now we have this terminal window, which I don't actually need. Oops. And I think I had a Rails running. That's gone. Great. Cool. I'll open up this other window, which was... Sorry, hang on one second. I literally might have to stop my share because I have lost track of something in my dock and I can't access it. Cool. I'm such a dad right now with my technology. Great. Cool. So I'm back here in Shirtsy right now because I think that there's still a lot of opportunity to practice building forms. Where we had picked up yesterday, I had a README going on this. Let me do that. Code dot. Also, now that I'm screen sharing, I'm going to bring my chat window up, which you probably can't see via the screen share, but I will be able to see questions as they come up into the chat. The README here, we had just gotten kind of here, right? We had created a shirt to sell, and we had done new and create. We viewed a list of all the shirts that had been created, and so I think we changed this a little bit, right? Like, we wanted to see a list of shirts that one user had created, but we ended up just seeing a list of all shirts, right? We had an index here for all shirts that's iterating through each shirt in our object here, our shirts collection, which came from our shirts controller when we called shirt.all. And then over here in the index, as we iterate, we do a link to, and we had created a special method on shirt that was designed to kind of like help display information about that shirt. Kind of almost like a 2S method called list details, which showed a few things about that shirt, right? That linked went to the individual shirt, and then from that individual shirt, which I believe is right here. Nope, that's the user show page. My bad. This is the shirt show page. We created this link to buy this shirt. And this was kind of an interesting piece here because we had to nest a route here. Inside of resources shirts, we created resources sales and only new, which means that when we create a new sale, we're going to be creating it inside of the scope of a shirt ID. If we look up here, new shirt sale route has the shirt ID right in the URL, which means that I can use like params ID at this route to populate a shirt. which is kind of cool. Let's talk about what that could look like. A new shirt sale is going to happen at the controller action sales new. So I think my goal for right now is to fulfill the story in this README about creating a new purchase, right? I want to fill out a form to purchase a specific shirt. Well, the specific shirt is going to be regarded in the URL. We need to figure out who's buying the shirt, so we're going to need to have like a buyer get set on that. We're going to need to figure out how many shirts are being purchased so that we can see like the quantity like on that sale. If we look at the schema here to review, yeah. So in the routes resources here, let me go to the schema. This sales, oh yeah, we don't have sales for this, right? So we need to actually get a sale table into here too. But before we even do that, let's look at these routes again. So what we've been doing is just saying like resources, right? And each line has resources. What we might not have seen yet is that within a resources call, you can also pass a block, and within that block, you can nest another kind of resource by name. So when Rails just sees resources, it goes, oh, I need to make like a RESTful route for this. I need to make a route like for shirts show, that should be shirts/ID, right? If I nest something like sales new inside of the notion of shirts, that's going to tell Rails like, oh, so for one specific shirt, we're going to drill down and have a new sale for that specific shirt. So then it's going to create this nesting pattern that talks about one specific shirt that we're nesting under, so shirts/ID, and then after that, we'll have like /sales/new to indicate we're making a new sale, but it corresponds to that one specific shirt. So this syntax is covered in Rails routing from the outside in, which is in the docs. Talk about nested resources a little bit. Let me pull my chat to the other side, and if I say nested, oops, nested resources. It's common to have resources that are logically children of other resources. So for example, a magazine has many ads, right? And an ad belongs to a magazine. And what they're saying here is that you could have resources ads inside of resources magazines, and it's going to create routes like this. Each route is going to refer to one specific magazine, kind of using that show pattern for a magazine. And then for one specific magazine, if we wanted to create a new ad that belongs to that magazine, this would be the route pattern. If we wanted to get a form for a new ad for a specific magazine, and that's what I'm kind of talking about now, right? Instead of an ad, we have a sale. Instead of a magazine, we have a shirt. And this is to return an HTML form for creating a new child thing that belongs to a specific parent thing. So yeah, this is kind of baked into Rails. Feel free to check out these docs here. I'm going to pop this link right here in the chat so it's easy for people to use. And yeah, that's essentially how nested resources work in Rails. You can nest resources within other nested resources if you'd like. So like, look at this, publishers 1, magazines 2, photos 3. You can do it, but I don't think you should do it, right? Because if I know that a magazine belongs to one publisher, do I really need to refer to that one publisher? Like, if I already have the magazine ID, I don't think I need it, right? I can find the magazine, I could say magazine.publisher, and that's kind of implicit in where the net magazine lives. So we generally only nest like one level deep like this, and the case that I have now is a perfect case for it, because I want to make sure that like the user had clicked on an individual shirt, and then it clicked on, I want to buy this shirt. Let me actually open this up and look at it on the web. Rails S. We'll go to localhost 3K /shirts /3. Presenting a shirt by Smitty. When I click on buy this shirt, right, what I'd really like to see is a specific form for doing a purchase of just this shirt. And if you look at the URL at the bottom of the screen here, it says shirts/3/sales/new. Let me try this. If I do a screenshot, yeah, that freezes it in place. So right here, shirts/3/sales/new. I don't want the user to really buy the wrong shirt by accident, right? So I want the sale to like correspond to that specific shirt. That's why I think it's a pretty good case for this tool, this nested resource. So if I click buy this shirt right now, we don't have a sales controller. We don't have a sales model. We don't have a sale. We don't have any views. There's nothing existing about being a sale yet, except for my instructions in the README. And that's because I was really deliberate yesterday to not like horizontally slice, right? A horizontal slice would have been, and this is more like kind of project preview stuff, for next week. But I want to vertically slice stuff. That was one of my goals, as much as possible. I don't want to avoid, I did not want to sketch out all of my associations and all of my routes and all of my models in advance. I like to work one story at a time to just kind of demonstrate that you don't need to build the entire foundation, because we're not literally building houses here, right? If anything, we're kind of building like individual rooms that kind of separate and move around as we need to, so I can just focus on one room at a time. So I'm now at the point that I do need to fill out a form to purchase a shirt, so I need to care about what a sale is. I've planned this out, though, a little bit. Up top, I think that a sale is going to belong to a shirt. It's going to belong to a buyer who's buying the shirt. And another thing about nesting, I could include the person who's selling the shirt, right, in this sale, but I don't need to, because a shirt already belongs to the person who created that shirt. The creator of the shirt is going to be the seller automatically, so all I need to refer to is the shirt. The shirt belongs to its creator, it knows its way home, but then we do need to set a buyer for this shirt, because that could definitely differ. And the buyer is going to set the quantity at the time that they purchase the shirt. So what I'm expecting is that this form is going to know about the shirt that's being purchased automatically, so we just need to set the buyer and the quantity. But before we get to the form, there needs to be a view. Before we get to a view, there needs to be a controller. I'm assuming that if we have a controller, there's probably a model backing that, and that's all going to start with a migration. So I'm going to do another Rails generate. I'm going to say Rails G model, because I know that's going to give me a model and a migration at the same time. Rails G model sale. And I know it's going to have a buyer ID. That's going to be an integer. And I know it's going to have a shirt ID. It's going to be an integer. And what else is it going to have? I always forget. That's why I write stuff down. It's going to have a quantity. Cool. And I put ID and timestamps in parentheses because I was specifically thinking about using these generators as I was doing my plans. I don't need to say timestamps. That's going to be provided. I don't need to say ID. That's going to be provided when the database gets created. So yeah, we need buyer, quantity, and shirt. Quantity is going to be an integer too, isn't it? I don't know if I even made that note. Yeah, I did. Cool. Great. Sweet. Let's run this. We've created a migration. We've created a sale model. The sale model is empty by default. The migration is not, because we've given it those terminal commands with the arguments. So we have integer buyer ID, integer shirt ID. Oh, interesting. Check this out. I put a comma on accident right here. Shirt ID integer. And integer actually took the comma that I mistyped. So it's good to check your migration, right? If you're going to use a generator and you use it wrong, then you're going to generate a migration wrong. And then the migration wouldn't work. I'd have a syntax error. So I'm glad I caught that little comma there. I'm going to run this migration. Cool. My kid's doing a piano lesson over Zoom right now, so if you hear background noises, it's just because I'm not in my usual lecturing room. Everybody's kind of moved around we're all remote here. We've created our sales. We've got those in the database, or we don't have any sales in the database, do we? How would a sale need to live in the database? It would have to be one buyer, one shirt, some sort of quantity. Let me just make sure that this is going to work. We've created a model. Let's play with it. If I say user.IDs to remember what IDs there are for users, and I say shirt.IDs to remember what IDs there are for shirts, now I can use that to help me create a sale. I can say sale.new, set this to a variable, sale.new, buyer ID. Let's say that the buyer is 11 and that the shirt is 3, and then the quantity is 1. Cool. That looks pretty good. Let's call sale.save. Yeah, that'll save a sale. That's great. So now I can call sale.all. And if I call sale.first, can I get to the buyer from there? Can I say sale.first.buyer? I cannot, right? And I can't say sale.first.shirt either because I haven't defined what? Any thoughts? Feel free to fire off in those comments. Associations, that's right. If I wanted to say sale.buyer ID, I could. If I wanted to say shirt ID, I could. But I can't do buyer and shirt until I give a method buyer and shirt. And when we say an association, like we could just declare belongs to's for both of these, right? Because it's got the foreign key, that means it belongs to one of each. Belongs to shirt and belongs to a buyer. Let's try this out. I didn't create errors about these associations yesterday. I kind of just typed out knowing what I would see, but I'm going to show you the errors that I'd run into. I've written buyer wrong because we don't have a table called buyers. So if I say sale.first.buyer, I'm going to hear about it. Right? Uninitialized constant sale buyer is the error that we get. It's looking for a class buyer that it can be associating with sale, but there is no class buyer. So I need to override buyer, right? Sales has a buyer ID, no problem, but there is no buyer table. There's only a user table. So I need to say class name user. By the way, strings work here as well as symbols. I'm just going to do this to mix it up so that people see that syntax too. But actually, I don't like mixing it up in my code because then later on people get confused about why I mixed it up. So that'll be for the video only. We're going to keep it a symbol for now. Go back out and pop back in. And we'll call sale.first.buyer. Boom, we've got it. We've got Gordy. Great. And we could say sale.first.shirt. Awesome. We've got a shirt. Bought the blue YOLO. Probably my favorite shirt so far because it's the only one with a message. Cool. Let's see. Sale.first.shirt, sale.first.buyer, those both work. Those associations are fine. Let's talk about getting this form up right. We have a controller for shirts. We have a controller for users. We don't have one for sale. Rather than generating, I'm just going to make the file by hand this time just to show that. It's going to be sales controller. It's always got that plural name for the controller file convention. This is going to be .rb. And if the shirts controller inherits from application controller, I think that we should probably have the sales controller do the same. So within this, we need to define new, because we do have a new route. And the thing I'm thinking about now, going back to this nested route thing, right, is if we look at the pattern of our sales new route, it's different from all the other news that we've built, right? Like, most of the time when we go and do a new, we have to say like object.new, right? And that's the only thing that we actually pass in as a variable. But now we have nested routes, right? So like a sale nests within a shirt that's being sold. And I think that there's actually going to be a very, very good reason why we're going to want to know that when we get to the view. So just for now, I'm going to pull shirt ID from params and set it. I'm going to say params shirt ID. Sorry, it's been set. I'm going to use it to find a given shirt. Params shirt ID. That's the other thing to know with nesting. Like, we can't just say ID, right? There's a shirt and a sale in the route, so the route is specific about what's being named. Sometimes with a nested route, you do get a colon ID, but it's only for the very last thing in the nest. So it might be like magazines / ID, magazine ID / ads / ID. For now, we're at the beginning of the nesting, so it's going to be shirt ID. I'm going to find a shirt by that. And just as a reminder for everybody kind of used to doing find for days and days, we can also do it this way. We could say shirt.findBy ID is param shirt ID. They're going to work about the same way. They'll misbehave slightly differently, but I'm not going to get too deep in that rabbit hole for now. I'm worried about what happens if we can get things to behave. So I'm going to set this to shirt. Even though we're making a sale, I think that an instance variable shirt is going to be useful to us in a minute. I'm going to create a views folder because I didn't generate the controller, so I need to make the folder. This is something that snagged a couple of people yesterday and will continue to snag people throughout the rest of this mod. If you're making a views folder by hand, you must be very, very careful not to put any like spaces at the end of the folder name, or else that's going to break Rails' ability to find the files inside of that folder. Yeah, people tear their hair out about that every mod too, and I tore my hair about it my first mod too, which is why I look like this. I don't know if you knew, but I had like a full Liberty Spikes mohawk last April when I started this job. That's not true, but it could be. And I know you're all laughing. I can't see your faces, but I feel it through the screen. New file, we'll say new.html.erb. Let's make a sale. I think that's a great way to do it. H1 opens, H1 closes. That's not right. That's right. We'll just say, buy this shirt. And then maybe we could even like show the shirt's list details here, right? Just to help the user like feel even better about their purchase. So we'll interpolate that. We'll say at shirt.list details because that's been useful to us in a couple of other places. See how this looks. So how do we get here? Oh yeah, we'll refresh the page. Shirts 3 sales new. Buy this shirt, a nice blue shirt declaring YOLO, costing merely 15. So this is where I think I wanted to make the form. So we'll do that. I'm not going to worry about the single zero here. In terms of like following the thing I just told you at the beginning of this, I could get into a rabbit hole right now, right? I could try to make sure that 15 has 2 trailing decimals, but I haven't made a form. So that would be like me rolling up really nice silverware, like, but I haven't prepped any food at the restaurant, right? Like the silverware is only nice if the food is there. People are only going to care about this number as money if they can actually spend their money on a shirt. So I need to make that possible, and then we can finagle the decimals later on if we have time. So I'm going to do a form for. Actually, you know what? For this one, I think I might do a form tag because it's going to let me be a little bit more explicit about what I'm like doing. And we did a form for yesterday, so I'm going to mix it up a little bit and just show different ways that we can do things in Rails. I'm going to do a form tag here, and it's going to need to go to a specific kind of route. And I need to think about the specific kind of route for a second. Am I going to take this shirt ID and save it in the form, like as a hidden input, so that when the form submits, this shirt ID of like 3 that I can see in the URL ends up in the form? I don't really want to do that. What I'd rather do is keep the shirt ID in the URL where it is now. So I could think about this in terms of like still nesting our sale create under shirt the same way that our sale new is nested under shirt. So if I do that, what are we going to have? If I say new create, and then I run my Rails routes again, let's see what we have. I think it's going to be like shirts, whatever, and then sales. Because yeah, sales is just what we'd need if we were creating sales, like by themselves. And now we're just going to nest it inside of one particular shirt ID. So if I was going to do this, I would want the form to point that way. And this is why I'm using the form tag right now, because if I was using form 4, Rails would kind of do all this for me under the hood, and I wouldn't get to have the experience of doing it myself. Let's do this. Where's my view? Where'd I put them? Views, there they are. Sales new. Form tag is going to go to /shirts/ whatever my shirt ID is. I'm already inside of an ERB interpolation, so I can just do the string interpolation in Ruby at shirt.id /sales. And I could also add a different method. If this was like an edit form, I could say like method patch right here, and that would change it to be an edit form. But by default, method is set to post. I'm going to make it explicit here just because I think it's we can see what it does. But I'll probably take it out, and we'll see that it doesn't change things to take it out because post is the default. Actually, let's change it. Let's do patch just to see what this looks like. I'm going to refresh. Oh no, encountered a syntax error. What did I miss? Form tag, shirts, shirt ID, sales, method patch. Encountered a syntax error. What did I forget? Form tag and patch, I think, is a problem here. I think that's supposed to be like a symbol. Nope, still something else. Encountered a syntax error while rendering the template. Check H1 by the shirt, closing H1 tag, open P tag, shirtless details, closing P tag, open form tag, shirts at shirt ID, sales, method patch, Feel free to fire off in the comments if you see the mistake that I've made here. I'm not really sure. A syntax error appears. Let me take this method out. I'm just going to remove stuff until things stop breaking. Still a problem. Form tag. Shirts slash at shirt ID slash sales. I wonder if I've messed up in terms of like writing this string. Is there another way that I could get this string? Well, I could use my Rails routes. We have shirt sales, right? Now this shirt sale, let's try that. Let's say shirt sales path. Let's refresh. Interesting, still a syntax error. So is it the form tag itself, perhaps, that's causing me the problem? If I took this off the page, no problem there. Did anybody see it? So I think I just saw it. What is the brother of end? End doesn't go anywhere without what? Throw it into the chat if you see it. What if end is the closing cover of a book? Yeah, we need a do here, right? So I have an end without a do. That was my syntax error. So let me go revert back. I'm going to add the do. Notice what I did was I removed the thing that broke things. And when I removed the thing that broke things, it really let my brain focus on exactly what I had removed and why that was the broken thing. Big debugging tip. Delete stuff until things work, and then you've found your culprit. Cool. So if I look at this form, it is wanting to go to shirts 3 sales. It is wanting to do a post method. If I wanted to change this, I could say method patch. And now if we look at this form again, I should probably put like something in here that's clickable. I'm just going to say like, hey, cool. I can click and inspect instead of wrangling all my screen stuff. Cool, so now look, if we look at this form, it still says method post, but since I said method patch, it throws the hidden input on there. And in fact, anytime that you have like a button to tag or a form for, and you say method whatever, then it's going to add this kind of hidden thing on there to tweak the method for you, which is dope. In this case, we don't need it to be a patch, we just need it to be a post. And I think we should do this the Railsy way. Now that I know that this works, I'm going to say shirt sales path. Shirt sales path, because that was the route prefix that I saw in my Rails routes for this given action. This is going to give me an error, I think. Let's see. Shirts 3 sales. Oh, cool. It actually had no problem drawing up the shirt sales path right now. I was wondering if it was going to have a problem where it wanted me to pass in the specific shirt that this path is about. I think I should, though. I think I'm going to, just to be specific. Because I'm wondering if there's some stuff going on under the hood about it just assuming that it should match the pattern of the page that it's currently on to generate a route when I don't give it an argument. And I don't want it to make too strong of an assumption. So I am going to pass in at shirt here. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm trying to manually set the value for shirt ID by passing in an argument. The same way as if I would do any other kind of show route. So I'm going to say if shirt sales path shirt, this is our form tag. That means that we need to have various field tags in here, right? So let's make a text, or not a text field, it'll be a number field tag for quantity. So we'll say number field tag. We'll call it quantity. We'll see what this looks like on our form. The Rails convention is to nest our parameters, right? So if we have this number, name, quantity, this is okay, but I'd much rather have it say shirt bracket quantity, so I'm going to do that instead. Shirt bracket, uh-oh, what have I done? I've put brackets on, it breaks my symbol, right? I think people were talking about this in the Slack earlier this week. Same as what we did when we wanted to go inside a specific folder path in a controller in Sinatra. You can do like the string and then put the colon before it, and that is going to turn it into a symbol. Of course, now that I think about it, I don't even know if it needs to be a symbol at all. I think it could be a string just as easily. So I'm going to refactor that. Just let it be shirt quantity. Should still work. Refresh. Take a peek. And our shirt quantity, yep. So now we have things nesting inside of the namespace shirt. That's not right, though. Wait a second. This is tricky with nested routes, right? I'm thinking of the word shirt and sale. It doesn't need to be shirt quantity. What are we creating here? We're actually creating a new sale. We're referring to the shirt because it's going to be nested inside. But in this case, I'm going to say sale quantity because that is the object that's being created. Questions on that? I think the nesting can be like a real brain burner sometimes the first time we dip into it. Sale quantity, ID is sale quantity, the type is going to be number. We could say like we're getting 4 of these shirts now. There should probably be some sort of label, right? So that the user knows what they're doing. And once again, like in terms of like make it work, make it right, if you just had this, better than nothing, right? Lets me as a human being do stuff. Even just having a form that submits without any labels on it is still technically working code. I'd just say at that point you're being pretty aggressive to your user. I'm going to try to write this the best way that I know how, which would be to have a label tag that kind of matches up with that input. Label tag called sale quantity. And the thing with a form tag is that it's very, very specific. So like I can match up the label with sale quantity. I can click this and it like highlights the field, which is really nice. But I don't want it to actually say sale bracket quantity just to match up. So I can pass a second argument of how I'd like it to display. Like this. Except I want it to be a string and not just a bare word. Now that changes the display, but the behavior of the label is still intact, so I can still use it for accessibility purposes. So we have our quantity here. We could also have another label and tag for who is the buyer. So I'm going to say sale here is going to be buyer ID. Let's see, here's buyer. And then instead of a number field tag, this is going to all need to change, right? This is going to be a select tag, which will be called sale buyer ID. And then this one needs to use options for collection select, I believe is what it's called. I have to look this up every time. Select tag. And there's going to be option tags inside of the select tag, but I don't want to draw them manually. I just want to iterate over all the users that there are. So yeah, options from collection for select. From collection for select. That's what I always throw out. Cool. From collection for select. And this is going to need to figure out what is the collection that we're iterating over. So we need to know like all the users that there are. Let me take a look at our sales controller again and see what we have access to. Yeah, we just have shirt right now. And so we could say here user.all. And we could send the ID from each user, and we could display the name of each user. Let's see how this looks. Back here, refresh. Yeah, so we have buyers displayed, Smitty, Lucy, Gordy, or Doc. If we take a look, we can click on the label and it gives me the input. That's really nice. We can inspect this. We can take a look at what's going to get sent over the wire. We've got the values the way that we want. That's all solid. The only problem here is that I've broken MVC, right? I've said user.all. I should be saying like at users. And in my controller, I should be setting it here, so as not to break MVC. Refresh, that's our quantity, that's our buyer. If I go back and review my schema real quick to make sure I haven't forgotten anything. Schema says I'm going to be in pretty good shape. We have a buyer ID, a shirt ID, and a quantity. The shirt ID is already carried in the URL, so it's going to exist for us on the back end. So yeah, let's try this out. If I say quantity of 3 and that the buyer is going to be Lucy. Oh wait, I can't submit my form. Let's do that. Let's put a submit tag in here. Let's see. Equal sign, because I want to show it. Submit tag. Purchase. I'll get them excited about making a purchase. So 3, say Lucy, purchase. Cool. Action create could not be found. Unknown action is not the same as unknown route. That means that we've gotten to the right route, right? It's not saying the route doesn't exist or we can't, there's no route there. It's just saying that we're at this route. We could say params here. It knows what params there are. We just need to create a create action. So here we have param sale. That's going to have a quantity. It's going to have a buyer. And we also have a shirt ID sitting in params because that's part of our URL pattern, right? So I could say param sale. That's going to give me just the params for the sale that I'm trying to create. And when I have these params, I'd need to like actually permit stuff, right? Permit quantity and buyer ID. And that's good. That gives me a params that is permitted. And if I wanted to start, instead of at param sale, I could do params.require sale, which is the stronger way to do it, a little more secure. Cool. Params require sale, permit, quantity, buyer ID. Gives me the hash that I need. Huzzah. This is going to be useful for me right now in the controller. So I'm going to go to the sales controller. I'm going to make a create action. I'm going to take the work that I just did to verify my params are good and pop it into a method, as we do. Def sale params. Here's a fun trick. In both of these routes, we're nested under a shirt. I want to find this shirt again, right? So the second I say this, that I'm going to find this shirt, now I have this shirt object, right? And I want to create a sale for this shirt. Does a shirt know how it's associated to sales right now? That's a good question to ask because I think it's going to help us like with this next creation step. If I go back and look at the sale that I had created, sale.first is for shirt number 3. So I'm going to go back into the console and play around for a little bit. Shirt number 3. And then if we say shirt.sales, undefined method, right? I never created an association to go from a shirt to sales because I'm vertical slicing, right? I didn't go and like horizontally slice my way through all of my associations. So if I go back to shirt, we know that a sale belongs to a shirt. This is another way to underscore, by the way, that these associations are not bidirectional. Like me saying a sale belongs to a shirt doesn't automatically give shirt a .sales method. We'd have to define that here. We could say that a shirt has many sales. And active record is going to assume that the foreign key is shirt ID because I am class shirt right now, and it's going to assume that there's a class sale because that is the singular form of the thing I have many of. Both of those assumptions are true, so I'm pretty sure that we can say shirt has many sales with no problem. Let's try this out. Let's exit, hop back in. Rail C, shirt.find 3. I do enjoy that I get to accidentally write shit a bunch of times as I code for shirts. It makes me happy. But cool, now it works. Shirt.find sales, it shows me the sale. Can I see like who my buyers are? Can't do that, right? If we wanted to set that up, we'd have to say has many buyers through sales. And the thing about this through keyword is it comes back to us, and I feel like it's always worth reviewing when we see the through, is that through is no longer talking about tables or class names or foreign keys. Through is just talking about existing associations. Through is like a Lego stacking word, saying if this is an association I'm trying to create, I can go through this association I've already created to figure out the steps. So sales is this association. This association refers to a specific class, and so we kind of need to go to that class and see, does the class know how to get to something called buyers? If it doesn't, then we'll need to use source to tell shirt what a sale is calling a buyer. But hey, a sale already has figured out how to get to something called buyer, right? We tweaked it with class name here for the direct relationship, but now sale does have an association called buyer. So shirt can literally go through sales and find something called buyer there, Active Record is smart enough to do singular plural in this case, because it knows that there's different ways that you can have many through. So yeah, it's going to go and look for a source association buyers or buyer on sale. It's going to find one. It's going to be able to put this together. So let's hop back out, hop back in, and make sure our association works. I'm going to say shirt.find. Oh, we'll do this again. Shirt.find 3 buyers. There we go. Cool. That's user 11. That's Gordy who bought this shirt in our existing sale in the database. So now I'm feeling pretty solid about these associations. I turn back to the controller, and if I found a shirt, then I should be able to do this. Check this out. Actually, I'm going to do it in the console first. If I have a shirt here, let's say shirt.first, I can do a new association chaining off of this to like create an object. So what I mean by that is shirt.first.sales.new, and then we could say buyer ID is 9. And check out what it's created. It's created a sale object with buyer ID of 9, and it's also set shirt ID to 3. How did that work? Well, shirt.sales is an association, right? Shirt.first.sales is we're just taking the first shirt object and calling .sales on that. That association is put together by Active Record according to a sale having a foreign key shirt ID that connects the two things together. So if I tell Active Record, make a new sale for this shirt, it's going to say, oh, you mean a shirt with ID 3? So I should have a sale with a foreign key of 3 on shirt ID? Yeah, that seems about right. And then it just does it for me. So this syntax is really slick. That lets me go here and say like at shirt.sales.new. Then we could pass in our sale params. And that handles maybe this dangling question in the back of your mind of like, how am I going to get the shirt ID into this sale as we create it? It happens right here. The shirt has its ID. When we call .sales.new, the shirt ID is in there. It's not sale.new because the association is not called sale. If the association was called sale, then we could say sale.new. But we have to go off of the association name. That's the reason. Active Record is smart enough to know that like .new can create more than one object. You could pass in an array of hashes, by the way, and you could create multiple sales for a shirt using this syntax. But by default, you can just pass in one hash and it'll create one shirt. It's just the namespace. That's all. It's not smart enough to like guess that there's going to be a singular method. So everything is just chaining off of existing methods that are written. So shirt.sales.new should attach this shirt's ID onto the sale. And then through sale params, we should have a quantity and a buyer ID that are specified. I think that we need to validate those things. I think there needs to be a buyer and a quantity. Actually, belonging to buyer, I didn't say optional true, so belonging to buyer is already validated for me, but I do need to validate quantity. And also, I feel like quantity needs to be a number, and it needs to be a number that is greater than 0. So this is where I want to go back and look at like a numericality validation. Sounds like the name of like a airport novel, like by, I don't know, Michael Crichton. The numericality validation. So we go in here, and check this out. We can say numericality true. That forces it to be a number. And we could also say numericality and then pass in some option, like only integer true. Yeah, that seems about right. Validates quantity, numericality, only integer true. That's what I want. What's cool about this for numericality is like being an integer means it has to be there. Very good. Yeah, it does sound like a finisher, doesn't it? Numericality. I like that. I never could enter the button prompts sharp and fast enough. Probably because I wasn't allowed to play it, and so I didn't have enough time to practice. That's my excuse anyway. Also, the controller was broken, and I don't even use this system. My uncle works at Nintendo, so I never play Sega. Cool. So quantity, numericality, only integer true. That's a nice option, but I think I can add more keys and values to this hash. So I can say greater than, right? So let's add that. Greater than. I've got the chat covering my screen, even if you can't see it. Greater than. And I put a colon at the front because that's how it was printed, but I actually want to use it as a key. Greater than 0. Cool. So we can't order 0 shirts. there can only be integers. We can't order 4.5 shirts. If you want to have 0.5 shirts, you got to cut it up at home yourself, like a good, like trendy person. Cool. So I think I still have a console open. We could play with this while we're here. We could check on this sale that we just created. Underscore. Oh, let me get back out and back in. Actually, I've got new validations. If I say s equals sale.new, and I say s.valid, and I say s.errors, full messages, shirt must exist, buyer must exist, quantity is not a number. This is really cool, right? We could say s.quantity equals 2.5. Now we could check on our errors again. Now notice it still says quantity is not a number, right? Yeah, so we're checking here. Greater than, make sure it's an integer without having to specify that. Ooh, let's test it. Let me just pop in the greater than and see how stringent it is. Rail C, s equals shirt.new or sale.new. Cool. For our sale, let's say s.valid, s.errors.full messages, quantity is not a number, s.quantity equals -2, s.valid, because we need to generate new errors. And then we say s.errors.full messages, quantity must be greater than 0, that's great. s.quantity equals 2.5. Call valid on it, check for errors. So it will let me set a positive quantity greater than 0 that is not an integer. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to set that only integer back up. That's why it's good to test these things out in the console before I get into my code, because there's just too much to manage in the browser. Hop back in. Apologies. My kid has tantrums about half the time that she practices piano because her taste exceeds her ability to play the notes, and it really frustrates her sometimes. s.new, sale.new, we'll say s.quantity equals 2.5, and then we'll validate and check for errors. Now we have quantity must be an integer. Okay, so I like the validations the way that they sit on sale right now, and so let's bring it home. Let's actually create this sale. Now that we have our sale in the controller, we have our sale params coming in. There will be a quantity, there will be a buyer. We've called shirt.sales.new, and I'm going to create a variable called sale, which will be this new sale that we've created. If we are able to save the sale, then we'll do some stuff. What are we going to do? Let's redirect to, I don't know, I kind of feel like there should be like a sales index, like that shows all of the transactions that have happened. Maybe that could be a place to show us that, like, hey, we've got some sales. Def index at sales equals sale.all once we get there. Maybe I could even p sales before I even, I'm not sure I'm gonna have time to make a view on the other side of it, but here at least I'll be able to like generate an error and then look at the sales that I've got. Cool. So once I create, we're gonna do that redirect. If we can't create, we need to stay on the form, and oops, we need to stay on the form, and we need to display errors, right? So I'm gonna render new once again. And when we render new, we should have the opportunity to show what went wrong. So let's go back to this form. Let's see if we can create a sale successfully, and then let's see if we can create a sale unsuccessfully. Shirts 3 sales, new. Let's try to sell this YOLO shirt again. No quantity, we've got a buyer, we click on purchase. Let's set a quantity of 4. We purchase. Yes. Undefined local variable or method, sales path for sales controller. This is good. I couldn't just say sales path, right? I wanted to go to an index page for sales, but there is no sales path method. Why? Because there's no sales path prefix. Somebody tell me why there's no sales path prefix. Okay. every time we say something underscore path, right, it's got to come off of this prefix. Right now we have a shirt sales path, we have a new shirt sale path, but we don't have a sales path because we don't have an index route created for sales. When we generate the resources for an index, that's going to include giving us the prefix. Let me find where I put my routes. Let's see, new create index. Great. Let's refresh this. Very good. Yeah, didn't set it in the routes. Call our Rails routes. Check it out. Now I have a sales path, do I? Oh no, it's under shirt sales. It's still scoped under one shirt, y'all. So check this out. I don't actually want to just see sales for one shirt. I want to see all the sales that have been created. I want there to just be a sales path. So what I can do is I can create sales resources that aren't nested too. These two sales resources are nested under a shirt, but I can also say down here, resources sales, only index, and this is going to create a non-nested index route for sales. This is me just using my resources and my routes to the fullest extent, right? I can nest some stuff when it suits me. In this case, I wanted to carry that shirt ID through the route, so I wanted to nest through the shirt. But now that I just want to display all the sales that have existed on any given shirt without scoping, I can do that too. And down here we have a route. Sales goes to get sales and runs sales index. So yeah, just because you've nested a resource doesn't mean you're trapped in there. You can also create other routes for the same resource that aren't nested in the same route file. The only thing that routes won't let you do is like recreate the exact same prefix twice. Like if you try to use the same value for as, then it'll get mad at you because it won't let you overload your method names. But this is allowed. I can nest some and I can not nest others. So now if we try this, we go to shirt sales. We refresh to make sure that it's a fresh request. We'll make 2 of these, go to doc, go to purchase. This is great. Undefined local variable or method sales for sales controller at the index route. This is great. I was trying to p sales, which doesn't exist, but that means I've gotten to the route. That means that we must have new sales. And we do. There's the new one, shirt 3 quantity 2 that got created. It was bought by our last buyer. Number 12 was doc. We can also see this other sale that we did where the quantity was 4. And once again, my chat is covering things, but the buyer on that second sale was number 9. So yeah, we're able to create some sales. Let me flesh this out, fix this error that I didn't intend to see. Not in the shirts controller, in the sales controller. Right here, P at sales. So successful sale creation is going. I want to talk about error handling too with like the 1 minute that I have remaining. So we're going to render new if this fails to work. And that's going to look broken to the user because they're not going to know why it broke. We click on purchase. Oh no, no method error in sales create. It's trying to map over something. Oh, it can't even re-render it, right? Because we need to have a value to iterate over. It can't iterate over at users because we didn't give it at users this time. This afternoon, I'm going to talk about some refactoring strategies in this controller because I already see a couple of opportunities that I'm really interested in. But we'll get there. Go back here, sales new, purchase. Now we've re-rendered new, but there's no errors on the page, right? So I think the very last thing that I need to do is put some errors on this sale new page. That's shirt new, don't need it. Where's my sale new? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? It's gone. That's all right. It's down here. What I'm going to do here is right above the form, I'm going to talk about sale.errors.fullMessages. And we'll say at sale dot errors dot full messages dot each do error. I'm making a mistake on purpose here so that you can see how the mistake might play out. The mistake that I think I'm making right now is I'm not sure if I actually have at sale at all times, the way that I've set this up, but we'll see if that is actually the case or not. We'll have a p tag that has the error in it. Cool. Let's try this. Back to the browser. We'll go to sales new, refresh the page. no method error, undefined method errors for nil class. I never gave it at sale on the very first route, right? When we go to our sales controller and take another look here, when we're creating, we do create an instance variable sale, so I'll be able to render that instance variable in this new, but that means that in the new we also need to have an instance variable sale. So even though I didn't use a form for object and I don't have an object to pass in, it's still very useful to just have sale.new sitting here, because even if I'm not using it for a form, I might need to render this with errors or without errors, and it's still good to have some kind of object. So I'm going to refresh. In the very new form, notice that since sale is a sale.new, that errors.fullMessages is just an empty array by default. I'm not getting into any errors on the screen here about not iterating over nil, because errors.fullMessages defaults to an empty array when the object has not been validated yet, so it's still going to iterate over a zero length thing. Now if I make my mistake, then I can see that quantity is not a number. We can make it the wrong quantity. We can make it greater than 0 and be wrong. And then we can finally, enter a valid value. This is cool. So the number field itself isn't even going to let this work. My browser is stopping me from making this form submission because the field that I've chosen is preventing the submission. That's kind of cool. We call that like front-end validation, by the way, where we have like something that doesn't even get to the database to be wrong. But now we've made our new sale, our quantity of 2 with the buyer of 9 on shirt number 3. We could go back and like buy another shirt just to show that like we can do more than just the third shirt. Sales new. It's a blue shirt. We're going to get 5 of them, and we're going to have Lucy buy them. Purchase. There's our error. Let's take a look at our sales. And finally, buyer ID is 10, shirt ID is 4, quantity is 5. So yeah, we've got some sales popping here, and I will record this for posterity. I've already done it. I'm just going to stop the recording once I'm done with the call. I'm wondering, as we get into everybody's kind of lunch hour times, what questions do people have right now? I'm going to hop back off the screen share, actually. Questions? Concerns? Fears, regrets? Doubts, denials? Losses, lamentations? Cool. All right, y'all. Thanks so much for tuning into this. I will get this video uploaded as soon as possible. And yeah, seriously, please ask questions like these as we go, and more through the Slack. And if you're having any sort of struggle with labs and not feeling like you know how to kind of put these features together, please reach out. I'm more than happy to sit down. I don't have as many one-on-one times like scheduled today because I have some more meetings and stuff in the afternoon. But I'm more than willing to like carve out extra time that's less planned if somebody's feeling like that urgent need to really kind of solidify something. Yeah. In any case, cheers, enjoy your foods, and I'll see y'all in the afternoon if you catch that one as well. Peace.